I love rap music, I love hip-hop, but sometimes I say things that come across as disrespectful of people that I respect. So please interpret this beginning here as kind of an apology tour. I mean, just recently, and fairly often, I will talk about Inspectah of Wu-Tang Clan, and I will sort of talk about how he's nobody's favorite and how his voice isn't quite as interesting or engaging as most of the other members of the group. But I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to disrespect the Rebel INS. I bought Uncontrolled Substances the day it came out. Okay, whatever Tuesday it came out, I was there. I love Inspectah. The point that I make is sort of a larger one about how it is to listen to musicians, and sometimes you sort of wait for the other guy, or in Inspectah case, the other guys, which is why I also owe an apology to Thagad Fahim, who often raps with Makami, and my love of Makami sometimes means that when I'm listening to Thagad Fahim, I'm a little bit like, okay, we get it, cool, when do we get to that? Which brings us to the subject of this review, Revelator, the album by Elucid. Now, my history of unintentionally disrespecting this man is terrible. I believe on the first the first album I ever reviewed of his was Haram, the Arm & Hammer album, and I believe I called him Elu Kid the entire way through. It's not even that hard of a name to pronounce. Like, it makes sense, elucidate, to make clear. I'm a language professor. I should understand how that works, but I didn't do it. And basically since then, I often talk about him as though I enjoy his work, but I'm sort of just waiting for Billy Woods' verse to come in, because I love Billy Woods' voice and I love his style. So this is my apology, and the way that I'm apologizing is first of all by recognizing that there's just no point in saying that kind of stuff. And also, this album, Revelator by Elucid, it's a masterpiece. If you watch my channel, that's the word I use when I'm trying to give the highest possible compliment. That is my metaphorical yellow flannel, if you speak internet music nerd, okay? This man, who I have called Elu Kid, has made a masterpiece, and I want to talk about it. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who's thought a lot about, what is it about Elucid that has eluded me? Hey, that almost rhymes. I think it's that, he's an artist. I think, and a lot of great, all musicians, all artists are artists, but some of them put the performance of their instrument more forward. And in the case of a rapper, someone like, let's say Kanye, is somebody who isn't particularly good at any one aspect of making rap music, but he is an artist who can put everything together, and he's so great at that. I would put Elucid in that category as well, because he's not really like a rappity rap writer. When he raps, you don't think, I could never think of that. And his style of rapping, I think that was the main issue, is that because he does this almost a caricature voice of yell talking, I think that was it. I think the comparison of that to Billy Woods' super laconic style, it just didn't quite jibe with me. But listening to this album on repeat, just over and over and over again, it's, first of all, a very enjoyable experience to listen to it so much. But then I realized, okay, he's not actually going for that. I just kept on discounting him. He's not actually going for what most rappers go for. He's trying to be an abstract artist. But he's not trying to be an abstract artist in a flashy way where, he's not saying purple, yellow, onomatopoeia of my armpit jumps the moon 2 times, brew, right? None of that's what I call abstract art words. It's not that. Everything, the sentences make sense, the syntax all works, but when you put it all together, you see that he's painting a picture, he's Elucid's eliciting feelings in ways that are more important than the actual words themselves. I was almost going to base this entire review of thinking of him as the Tom York of rap, because he's very good at using sort of fixed expressions, playing with words, sort of that feeling that you have sometimes when Tom York is singing, the singer of Radiohead. It feels like he just found a phrase book, and it's just reading the words as though they're so strange, while at the same time using those strange terms to paint a dystopic picture of the late capitalistic hellscape that's before us. Except the difference is, of course, Tom York is from a is not from a traditionally oppressed group in the country where he lives. So often those sort of negative depictions of a kind of hellscape are abstract and not lived experiences. Anyways, let's get back to this album. By the way, there's the back. It's very cool. Maybe at the very end I'll show you the inside liner notes, because they're really good liner notes. But this album is just the best for him. I just wrote, this is another thing I'm not going to flesh out. Everyone loves Batman and Robin, but Nightwing's a pretty good character. That's the sidekick of Batman who goes off. And I don't think that Elucid is the sidekick to Billy Woods, but that's the way I always saw it. So this is making me realize that was just a false impression. What is this album? Well, it's a lot of interesting things mixed together. If you really pay attention to it, there's a certain personal theme that pops out. And again, these are abstract sketches. So I am concluding from observations and projections. So I'm projecting my life onto this person who I don't know, have never met, never even interviewed, right? It seems that a lot of this album is about his own life, his life of domestic happiness and appreciation, cynical about the state of the world. It appears as though he has a couple kids. It appears though they were born in September, which is great. I have 3 kids born in August, and I'm born in September. Close enough. It seems to be a lot about living with his wife. It seems like he's painting the picture of a happy but not an easy marriage, and that's the sort of personal side. I think that's Damn, that was an intense bird. It makes a really, really subtle personal aspect to the rest of the backdrop of the album, which is highly political, spiritually political. The term I'm going to use, I'm not sure what I'm going to title this video. I'm pretty sure I'm going to call it something like the masterpiece of the apocalypse is apocalyptic. What does that mean? I know. Apocalypse means the end of the world. That's what the world apocalypse means. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That's a weird sort of metonymical mistake that we have made as a civilization, where we have decided to allow the word apocalypse to mean the end of the world. That's not what it means. It means, going back to the Greek root, to uncover or reveal, from the word kaluptein, to cover and apocalypse. It means to reveal. What is a revelator? A revelator, the etymological root of that, is not Greek, it's Latin, is one who reveals. Apocalypse and revelation are the exact same word. Okay? But even more important than that, even the word revelation doesn't mean the end of the world. It's a kind of story. I'm going to read from the Wikipedia definition. I could get a different definition to seem more cultured and all that stuff, but it's a good enough definition. Apocalypse is a literary genre originating in Judaism in the centuries following the Babylonian exile, but persisting in Christianity and Islam. In it, a supernatural being reveals the cosmic mysteries or the future to a human intermediary. The means of mediation include dreams, visions, and heavenly journeys, and they typically feature symbolic imagery drawn from the Jewish Bible, cosmological and pessimistic historical surveys, the division of time into periods, esoteric numerology, and the claims of ecstasy and inspiration. So that's what an apocalypse is. And that's what a revelator is. Now, when we think about the word revelator, it usually, if you studied religion a little bit, you most often think of someone who is sometimes called John of Patmos, but is more often called John the Revelator, who wrote the book that we call Revelations. It's not the name of the book. The book is called, I believe, the Book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ, something like that. It's singular. It's the Revelation. And if you study it, this is not like some revolutionary new book. It's copying the Book of Daniel. It's copying a bunch of older Jewish texts. But the whole idea of the Book of Revelation, okay, the way that we think about it is, the hellfire and the 4 horsemen and the angels fighting and all that stuff. But if you really study it, it's more interesting, because it's like this guy, St. John the Revelator, who's describing essentially the choice. The choice that is before all of us, and the choice that is before the church, and the choice that is before Christians and non-Christians alike. What is the path that they are going to follow? Are we going to be compromised, or are we going to be faithful? That's essentially the message. And if we are faithful, then we get to live in the kingdom of heaven as it is on earth at the end of times. Okay? But it's very, very concerned with actually talking about actual churches. He wrote the letter it's a letter to 7 specific churches, like churches where we know where they are. We know the names that they were. It wasn't some random vision. Okay? But of course, when we talk about Revelation, if anyone comes up to you and that crow is... A crow is trying to reveal some truth to me, which is, dude, you got to stop recording on your back porch. When you say Revelations, or if someone says to you, hey, have you ever studied the book of Revelations? You should treat that like they're saying, hey, have you ever read Ayn Rand? Hey, have you ever read Dianetics? Like, man, someone starts talking to you about Revelation, they're probably going to be some kind of super religious zealot who you don't want to waste your time talking to because they don't have a movable mindset. So there's no point talking to them. You're just going to listen to them. But that's because there's this other punitive nature of the Revelation, and it's also a very inscrutable book that's filled with all these symbols. The 7 seals and the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls, and Jesus is a wounded lamb, and there's candles, lamp shades, and lamp holders, all these things. And, to a certain extent, if you were to take this album, you could say, okay, it's also kind of about human folly and political error. It is a little bit about Gaza. It's actually a lot about Gaza. It's a lot about racism. There is a number that is in this album quite a bit, which is the number 5. But the biggest thing, the almost comically stupid thing that humans have done since the book of Revelation was written is they don't actually care about what the book's about. They just sit there trying to decipher it. This is when the world is going to end. Oh, I did the math, and there's 6 of 666, and there's the 7, and we do carry the 1. Friend, what a coincidence! The world's going to end in my lifetime. What a coincidence that every single generation of humanity has done the math to figure out why they're so special they get to see the world end. You're talking to a kid who lived through the millennium in 2000, okay? We were convinced the world was going to end. It has a different form, but that's what it is. But the thing is, if you talk to theologians, the book of Revelation is not a book to decipher. It's not. It's not, you're not supposed to sit there and figure out what is the end time. It is a prophecy. It is something that a prophet, somebody who has this kind of mystical connection to a higher force, has revealed to us. It's about that conflict between faithfulness and unsteadiness. That's what it's about. There's a meaning of the text, which I think is the same thing about this album and how I'm going to try to approach it. I am not once going to put forth a theory as to why he says the number 5 so often. I'm not going to. I could, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to break down every single word of this album. I could try, but that goes against what I think makes this album so great, which is its abstractness. Now, let's talk a little bit about production. A lot about production. I don't know how long this video is going to be. It's going to be pretty long. If you don't know the lore, I wake up an hour early because my family is very busy. I have a 2-year-old who's on this monitor. Oh, Jesus. And if she's too awake, then I'll have to do a part 2 of this video. You'll just have to click on it. That beep was that it's low on batteries, though. So we should be okay for now. So anyways, the amount that I have discredited Elucid is just terrible. Also, because if you listen to Billy Woods talk, the way he talks about Elucid, there's no question he sees him as an equal. That's why they work together. Like, that's the craziest. That's why I feel like such a schmuck and a moron. And you, my commenters, have been telling me I'm a schmuck and a moron. Go ahead, tell me in the comments again. Skye, you're still a schmuck and a moron for sleeping on Elucid for so long. I deserve it. But basically what I would do is I would give all the credit for everything that I thought was good to Billy Woods, and all of the credit to the things I didn't like as much to Elucid. So, if we take this album which I reviewed, I actually invented this little thing to describe this album. If you don't know what this is, This is my avant-gardeometer for rap beats, where I try to describe rap beats that are avant-garde, that push the boundaries, that if other musicians listen to them, they actually might hear them and move the art forward. They might do things that are different. It's not sounding like anything else, it's pushing things forward. This album is a very solid 5. It is doing things that are not just sort of unsettling, but is doing things that are new in a different way. It has an amazing production that in some ways is a lot like the We Buy Diabetic test strips, because there's like chunks of producers, the same way that album had, like, JPEG Mafia had this number, had this number, had this number. This album sort of does that, but truthfully, this is a better album than We Buy Diabetic test strips, because I think even though it uses all these different producers, it's more unified, because in reality there's one producer. This album is produced by Elucid. I'm going to mention his name again, the same way that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is produced by Kanye. It doesn't mean he wrote every beat, but it's very clear that he has this totally cohesive vision of what he wants his album to sound like, what he wants this revelation to sound like. The Revelator is going to reveal these things. He's going to be challenging our faithfulness, our worldliness. He's going to be seeing the way that we are, and he's going to do it in this amazingly unified soundscape, which I am going to describe in some detail. Now listen, this is not a sponsored podcast. I'm not going to try to get you to do anything. I mean, okay, don't bet on sports. That's just one thing. It's class war. Online sports betting is class war, and you're a loser. It doesn't matter how much you win, you're going to lose. I don't mean you're a loser like you're a bad person. I mean like you're going to lose. So don't gamble on sports. Do not let the pig fuckers win. Okay? Okay. But beyond that, I don't do the actual sponsorships. But I do like to plug. And in particular, if you don't know the Rap Music Plug podcast, why are you watching me? I say this a fair amount, but the Rap Music Plug podcast, I say this a lot about other creators. You should not watch this. If you only have like an hour to give to listening to thoughts about the album Revelator by Elucid, first of all, find more time. Second of all, go listen to that, because it's an interview with Elucid, and it's better than any Genius annotation. It's better than any interview. It's a wonderful podcast. I can't figure out how many people listen to podcasts, so I don't know. Like, it doesn't have that many views on YouTube, but I would hope there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands on iTunes. I don't know. But if you don't know it, you got to check it out. One of the things that it mentions is that the importance of the fact it's on this label, Fat Possum, and that the fact he had a bigger platform. The way that Elucid said it in the interview is he is dodging the opportunity to be palatable, which I think is what makes this such a great album, is that it is truly uncompromising. I should also say, I'm not sponsored, but I am maybe compromised, because I have a good relationship with someone at Fat Possum who sent me this album for free a week before it came out. But what am I going to do? They produced Honey Glaze. They're producing the Five Liz Glock. They're producing this. It's just a very good label that I think you can trust, who releases really good stuff. So they want to keep sending me awesome records. I'll take them. I won't give them an automatically good review. But anyways, so that's not sponsored, but I'm becoming a shill. Feel free to call me a possum shill. So that actually sounds like a Midwest band. Oh, hey, we're Possum Shill. This is our next song called Out of Mississippi. Okay. The other thing that this whole podcast helped me to understand was he made a direct reference. He explained one of the primary inspirations for this album. Elucid did. And he compared it to a song called Rated X by Miles Davis. Now, this is not actually the album cover. I live in Rochester, New York, which is a terrible place to see concerts because nobody comes here, but a great place to buy music because it has the record archive and the bop shop to buy jazz music. The poor dude at the bop shop, he looked all over. He went down into the basement. He couldn't find this Miles Davis album. He said he had literally 10 feet of Miles Davis records, but he could not find this album from 1974. But I think you're sort of getting where I'm going, maybe, with the fact I don't know if this is on purpose. It's hard to believe that it's not. So this album is Get Up With It from 1974. It has the song Rated X. I think this kind of uncompromising, staring straight at the camera, black and white image of both defiance and weariness works for both of them. I think it's on purpose. And when you listen to this song, you're going to lose your mind. If you love Revelator by Elucid, you're going to lose your mind because it's the same thing. It's jarring, disjointed, it's gorgeous. It's all these whacked out sounds. It turns out Miles Davis is playing organ, not even trumpet on here. And there's this wah-wah sound and these drums and these blaring sounds, start and stop. And it's like so unsettling, but also so gorgeous and so discordant, but also so funky. It has all these things all together. Literally, the soundscape of this song and this album is the rap version is in here, and I hate it. I hate it when people try to compare rap to more established genres and then make that seem like that makes it, like rap is good when it's poetry. No, fuck you. Rap is good when it's good rap. Sometimes that happens to be poetry. You know what I'm saying? Same thing. Oh, rap is good when it does what jazz does. No, it's not. I think a lot of jazz rap is kind of bad and unenjoyable and frankly preachy and bad jazz, okay? But this is something different. I think he did it. I think. Like, it feels like listening to Miles Davis in the 70s. What? How is that possible? How could you make a rap album that feels like a Miles Davis track from the 70s? I don't know, but that's why you have to be open to changing your mind. If I considered him just to be Robin, and it turns out he's Superman, then that's on me. He also talks a little bit about psychedelics. He talks about how there's like no black psychedelics. Just, not for nothing. But I was talking about the end times. I love art of the Northern Renaissance, and in particular the woodcuts and etchings of a guy named Albert Dürer. Around 1500, which is when he lived, everyone was like really hyped up about the end times, because the end times are coming because it was going to be 1500, and everyone just decided that was when the apocalypse was going to be. Him, being a smart guy, made a series of woodcuts a couple years before 1500 about the apocalypse because he knew they would sell, okay? And this is one of my favorite images from that series. Okay, this is a Xerox, not an original print. Okay, so it's wild because this is John the Revelator, and he's talking to, I believe, God, and he's trying to describe this temple that he's measuring out, and I believe these are the two lamp holders who represent the church, all sorts of stuff. But look at the way that he's depicted, because he's actually told, and Daniel was told the same thing in a previous prophecy. He is told to eat the text and then say it. And the text is sweet and it is bitter at the same time. Do you not feel that when you listen to this album? That it is as though Elucid has eaten a magical scroll and is spitting it out? And listen, this is 1500. This is before psychedelics were invented. This is completely psychedelic. This is an absolute psychedelic, trippy-ass freak-out. John the Revelator. Also, John the Revelator, if you don't know it, Blind Willie Johnson, 1930. Beautiful old Delta jazz song. I don't know if it's from the Delta. It's just a super old jazz song all about the song of the seven seals. Sunhouse did a version of it where he's clapping, and it's just beautiful. Anyways, it's a long tradition of talking about John the Revelator. It's an old gospel song, an old spiritual. To me, it all ties together. To me, it all makes perfect sense. John the Revelator from the Bible, John the Revelator as depicted as eating a text, John the Revelator as in the Blind Willie Johnson song, and Miles Davis and Elucid all together. He also happened to say in that interview that black people are rarely called psychedelic artists. And the way that he put it was they're appreciated for their body, not their mind, so they can't be considered psychedelic, which is great because arguably the greatest psychedelic artist of all time was not some pasty-ass dude from England. It's probably Miles Davis. Frankly, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to front. I don't understand Miles Davis enough. Like, Like every couple of years, I get a Miles Davis album, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get it. Okay, okay, focus. And then I just don't get it. I'm frankly just not smart enough to really appreciate Miles Davis on the level that I think I will eventually. Hopefully, I'll get smart enough if I get old enough. I was able to hear it and understand it by listening to this album because Elucid sent me here, because the Rap Music Plug podcast sent me here. But yeah. Another little side thing too. This is just apropos of nothing. You know, Miles Davis was a very militant guy, very angry at white people for a lot of great reasons. But he also collaborated with a lot of white people, like Jack McLaughlin and Keith Jarrett and all that stuff. And I think that's sort of what's happening in underground rap music. I think it's this sort of thing where underground rap music is becoming so good, and there's a lot of white people hopping around making music and making production on this album. I think probably the majority of producers on this album, I think, might be white. I mean, not the majority of songs, but like different people, you know, just there's a lot. And I think it's like jazz, where it's like, it didn't, like John McLaughlin, like, was a good enough guitarist that, like, just go ahead, man. Like, you're not the devil. You're not oppressing me. We're making music together. We're doing things together. So I think that's an interesting way to think of people like, you know, Kenny Siegel, you know, like, yeah, the lived experience might be different, but I also love on this podcast how he talks about the privilege to be a musician, about how he says that he made this album unintentionally, which I think is great because it leads to that prophetic feeling where it's like he's just expressing through prophecy, through vision. And I think he should have, I personally think that he should have production credit on every single song, like I said, because he seems to be very clearly leading this whole thing. Now, also on that podcast, God, man, this is a really good podcast. Welcome to Professor Skye's podcast review. He makes reference to an artist called Sam Gilliam, who I must admit, even though I've studied art history, I don't know very well. I got my degree in art history before the curriculum was really diversified properly. No insult to my professors. It's just we've gotten more intelligent over time and learned to recognize more non-pasty white dudes. You know, maybe a little bit less of Durr, maybe a little bit more of, Basquiat, whatever. But he quotes, this is how he quotes him. And when people misquote, it's important because it tells a lot about how they feel. He quotes Sam Gilliam as saying, abstract art makes you realize that you don't know everything. So I got fascinated by this, and I tried to track down the quote. And I think I found it. I think it's from a video from the Louisiana Museum of Art. It's on the Louisiana channel. And it's this interview with this guy who's fascinating. You know, he's from Tupelo, Mississippi. He was born 2 years before Elvis Presley, also from Tupelo, Mississippi. He does these great kind of color field paintings with these canvases that aren't on stretchers, so they're just kind of like drapes all over the place, free painting. And I found the actual quote, so that I want you to get this feeling, especially because it's so colorful. And we have such a black and white album that this guy right here, Sam Gilliam, is going to describe to you on the Louisiana YouTube channel why abstract art is political.
Somewhere that making abstract art can be just as political as making art with representation. What do you mean by that? How can abstract art be political?
It messes with you. It convinces you that what you think isn't all. And it challenges you to understand something that is different than a person.
All right? Does that not make sense to you now? Does that sentence not make sense to you? If you love this album as much as I do, does that not make sense? It messes with you. It convinces you that what you think is not all. Also, side note, Fat Possum Records is from Mississippi. Mississippi is having a moment on the channel. He also references a guy named Africa Islam, who's a very important figure in kind of early hip-hop. If you read a book like Jonathan Abrams' To Come Up, a very enjoyable kind of first-person tales of the beginning of hip-hop, he's one of maybe the more overlooked early founders of hip-hop, and especially hip-hop media. He used to do a show on WHBI called Zulu Beats. Zulu Beats Radio, and the Zulus, founded by Africa Bambatos, one of the earliest groups of hip-hop, and they were the ones who codified the idea that hip-hop had all the 4 different components of graffiti and dance and MCing and DJing, and they had helped to defeat all the gang culture in South Bronx. They weren't the ones that defeated it, but they helped keep it defeated. They had this whole philosophy of peace, love, unity, and having fun, and Africa Islam was a member of that group. And he would do this radio show, probably the first radio show ever dedicated to hip-hop, and you can find it on YouTube, and Elucid tells you to do it, and you go on there, and it was on 105.9 in out of New Jersey, actually, the radio station is. It's no longer called WHBI. It's now a classical music station. But you can listen to these just wild old radio. Like, we're talking like 1981 it was founded. Like this radio show was founded in 1981. We're talking after Rapper's Delight, but before The Message, like in that weird dead zone. And so anyways, Africa Islam, my favorite quote from him in this book is describing what he was doing. "We made lemonade from lemons. I guess we partied from the soul. That's the only word I can really put it. We partied from the soul and enjoyed music because it was free." And there is a kind of old school spirit, that kind of old, incredibly old school spirit. Also, Africa Islam produced most of Ice-T's best work. 6 a.m, police at my door. That's Africa Islam. He was born in the Bronx, but he's like behind some of the most important foundational texts in West Coast gangster rap. So a little bit of praise for Africa Islam here, who's also shouted out throughout the album. There's also a fair amount of Middle Eastern influences. There is a producer on here who's Iranian, and then there is this fellow, John Nellen, who I'm going to speak quite a bit about. I just realized his last name is a palindrome. That's cool. And his parents really missed out on calling him Otto Nellen. Then he'd have a first and a last name that were palindromes, or Bob. There's a lot of palindrome names. Tell me your favorite palindrome names in the description. Am I asking for... Is that how I'm trying to get you to engage with this video? Is give me palindrome names? No. Smash the like bucket. You know you can. I'm 32 minutes into an album review and I haven't even talked about any music yet. Who else gives you that? Do you want it? I don't know. Tell me by smashing the like bucket. Tell me by subscribing. My hands are so cold because it's late October in Rochester, New York, and I could barely even say A-V-A-A. I might have even signed that wrong. Tell me in the comments. Someone said that I said A-T-A-A one time. So I apologize for that, but I will heart any comment that says A-V-A-A, just so you know that I'm reading, because I read every comment. So let's get to a concrete example. Produced by John, last name is a palindrome, Nellen. And by himself, the opening track, The World is Dog. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in it. It starts right off. Now, the coolest thing that I learned... Okay, now I learned so much cool things from that podcast, that great interview. You know, rappers aren't doing enough interviews. Shout out to Rob Markman, because he's been saying that. Shout out to Curtis King, because he's reinforcing it. Underground rappers are doing a lot of great interviews, and the world's a better place for it. This was the first track that was recorded. And I just cannot express to you how much I love this song. Because apparently they recorded it in an apartment, and they were going to record it in a studio with $12,000 microphones, but then they just ended up recording it in the apartment, and it has that feeling. And it starts off with some looping feedback, but then the beat just starts, and the drums are pounding, and they're going super hard, and John Nellen is a drummer, and God damn it, why isn't this happening more? This is what you have to tell me, rap fans, in the comments. Tell me, a real drummer drumming on a real drum set with a rapper. I'm not saying the Roots, they're great, but that's a whole band, that's a whole thing. How often has rapking my mind, I cannot think of another time like this, where it is this direct and this good. I know there's a bass who comes in. The bass player is great. The bass player is awesome. But it's really just drums and voice. And the voice is raw and it's yelling. And the drums are such a, like, the thing is, like, I'm a drummer, right? That's my main instrument. And I love drumming. And I love studio drummers. They're great, and, you know, they can play everything and they can do everything. But there's something that gets lost sometimes with the beautiful drum set, a beautiful sound, all the different things. This is a hi-hat, a bass drum, a snare, and a floor tom. Like, literally not even a 5-piece kit. Just a really, really small kit. A 2-piece kit. Really. Just not even a cymbal. And when you watch the video, directed by Ryusuke Tanzawa, the same guy who did the Doves video, which is one of my favorite videos, one of my favorite songs of the year, you get the rawness of this song, of this video, of this performance, and of this album. He puts a wallet on his snare to deaden the sound. And then goes into this, like, super funky beat. And you might think it's an old break beat, but it's not. It's a dude playing, and then the rapping, and it's the two of them together, and it's so raw, and it's so good. And the video is also awesome, because I have a dude who trips over the drums, and he just keeps falling down the stairs, and that's the feeling. Shout out to Tanzawa, probably the greatest music video producer out there right now. That's 2 videos that I've seen of his, and they're great, and they're cheap, and they fit the music perfectly. And just the artificial nature of his voice, which sometimes bugs me, is just so delightful here. And the way that it goes, the drum beat keeps changing at the end, and it's almost a little jam. And then we have these ominous, unclear, poetic lyrics. Abstract music challenges you. Abstract art challenges you. Metropolis, inverse, overlord skyscape. Fang bite, dog breath, short leash, pit fight from this height at this speed, downhill, careening, hands off, it's just happening. Bending Hectic by The Smile, lyrics by Radiohead. Take my hands off the wheel. I think he's listening to it. I think Elucid is a Radiohead fan. I don't know. I don't know nothing about Elucid. Okay? I could feel it before you say it. I'm not psychic, but I'm reading. I receive it, then I weigh it. Does it live it or die? I'm not psychic, but I'm reading. I receive it, then I weigh it. Elucid the Revelator. Okay, he's describing the world as dog. The world as this biting, fighting thing. Of course, dog is the opposite of God. It's the same word backwards. It's a stupid point, but it's not it's not unimportant. It's not unintelligent. Always about to hang up. Who gonna tell me why? Still inside, honey child. Who deserted? I trust none. Fear none. Small world. Devolve. Draws the grind. Teeth the tear. The bind, spit out, come spared. I'm a whole new skin, eyes, hair, new B word, new triggers. Who goes there? There is a pit, there's a plague. He's mixing up his flow, and he's just painting this. Can't clock the kills, all a mystery, force past will, eating everyone. Eventually, the world is dog. This is his apocalyptic vision, which is apocalyptic vision is actually that's like saying it's a vision. This is his apocalypse. This is his prophecy. This is how he sees the world. And the point of these things, the point of an apocalypse, which is to say the point of telling a prophecy, is not to say, look at all these cool things burning. It's to say, hey, this is a warning. These are the things that are a problem. And this album is revealing to us that the world really might be dog. Not in a cool way. Not like Bo and Toby over there, asleep and smelling like absolute garbage, man. My dog smells so bad. It's one reason I'm happy to record outside. Bo's got this ear infection. Stinks up the whole house. We got medicine for him, but it's bad. Not those kinds of dogs, but the kind of dogs that bite, that tear, that scream. The world is that. Then we get to the next song, CCTV, produced by August Fennell, and this little thing here is a total exercise in relativism, okay? Total exercise in relativism. Because a lot of people hear things that might be 1 through 5, and they just hear gibberish. They just hear it too much. This album was on, I was listening to the vinyl, and my wife just said, can you please turn this off? And she's not saying it's bad, but it's just too jarring. And my baby was crying when we were listening to this one. She loves the first track, but the second track, I mean my 2-year-old, the one who's rolling around in her crib, fortunately not crying. It's too much. It's too much. It broke the avant-garde. Now that's to my taste. August Fanon is like one of my favorite producers. I mean, seriously, some of the beats that he made for Makami are like some of my absolute favorite beats in hip-hop history. But it just happens to be that this soundscape is just so much, which also, by the way, is the same way people often feel listening to Miles Davis. Like, he's going out super far. What happens if you Hey, Miles, you lost me. What's your response? Good. All right? That's what happens here. Tell me a lie, tell me a truth. Creature comes in and raps. I like it how there's basically no sound behind him. More Tom Yorkie style lyrics. Don't be mad at me, sunshine and tear gas, flashbang, Kool-Aid Man, bust through the walls to the victor spoils. Even rebels got a pause. That's a Public Enemy reference. I should have been able to hold up a Public Enemy CD. I've got them all, but I got all of them through the 91 album. Do I have the one after that? Do I have He Got Game on CD? I think I might, but anyways. Blood spill so casually between the gauze, squeezing you and Galaxy. A lot of this album is about the genocide in Gaza, the killing of many innocent people. I'm going to talk about that in much greater detail coming up very soon. I think that's on purpose, gauze, squeezing. But as we will get into, I think it's really important that this is not seen... We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a song soon. He also references It's Jingling Baby, which is an LL Cool J song. And LL Cool J is from Jamaica, Queens. And it turns out, so is Lucid. And at the end, at this very jarring song, he kind of gives you what you want. Nice little kind of funky boom bop drum line with some echo bars. And that's the thing, like, he knows what you want. Lucid's not stupid. He knows that you want easier things. Miles Davis could have made Kind of Blue 37 times. He could have made Kind of Blue 2. He could have made Kind of Bluey with Alchemist. Okay, sorry. I had a little pretend sort of mashup going there. Then Yab Bite, produced by Child Actor. What the hell is going on? What is this beat? It's totally crazy, these percussive sounds. I tried to figure out how to describe this beat, the percussion on this beat. Remember the zombies from 28 Days Later? Those angry running zombies? Not the, like, brain zombies. Not the original Haitian zombies, I'm talking, like, the weird British ones. They're, like, hyped up on ketamine. You know what I'm saying? They just run around, or not ketamine, bath salts. Imagine those zombies playing ping pong. That's how this beat sounds. And if that makes sense to you, that's because you love this album as much as I do. Killer drum line where like none of it is played at the same time, like they're individual notes, and it's just all of these. And this is what I love, He like has some rich rhymes here. Yes, I need it how I want it. Feel like Southern California with my belly full, spaghetti legs, eat your vegetables. So right there, belly full vegetables. I don't think Lucid is incapable of writing mosaic rhymes. He is incapable of assonance and dissonance and consonance and instruments. I think he's very capable of all those things, but I don't think that's the point of what he's trying to do. This actually reminds me of an Open Mike Eagle video from a couple of days ago, I think. I don't know. If you're not following Open Mike Eagle, he's doing some of the best rap commentary, especially from a rapper. He's just great. He's talking about how like you can get stuck in rhyme runs, and you end up what you write like it seems cool at the time, but like you're just stretching out too hard. There's none of that with a Lucid. He'll make like these kinds of rhymes, but then he'll just drop them. Vegetable, trampoline, those things don't rhyme. It doesn't even matter if you're from Mississippi or from Atlanta, where you can use your accent to rhyme words in different ways. Okay, Glorilla could not rhyme vegetables and trampoline. Okay. I'd like to hear her try, though. 13 guineas for a pickaninny piano, squatting in a Barcelona hotel room, playing Wu-Tang Forever. I remember this one. I have never in my entire life been more hyped for an album to come out than this album. Like, waiting for this album ended up changing my life. Waiting for this album is why I am a French professor. Check out my review of the album by I.M. L'École du Micro d'Argent, while I explain that story. I like this because I almost feel like he's in conversation with that Woods song where he talks about being in Amsterdam listening to, I believe, Jay-Z. It's this, I think it makes sense because I imagine if you're an African American or if you're, of African descent and you are in sort of fancy European places, you often probably feel othered, and maybe like listening to rap music is like a way of tethering you. to like your home and like feeling connected. And then it ends with talking to Siri. My daddy doesn't like you. I'm not sure I understand. There's also a whole other theme of like technology and the sort of dystopic nature of dealing with technology. Why at 8:05 a.m. does someone have their leaf blowers on? Everybody just leave the leaves alone. They're fine. How do you think you get... What do you think? You think God made leaf blowers? You think they needed leaf blowers in 1500 to have grass? Anyways. Next track called Bad Pollen. This is produced by apparently the Iranian producer Saint Abdullah, or of Iranian origin. I don't know anything about them. And it's this great, glitchy, dusty waltz with this Arabic singing. I think it's in Arabic, or maybe it's in Farsi, or I don't know what it's in. It's this great producer. It's this amazing waltz. And oh my God, just like Lucid's rhymes are so great. I'm not even going to read them all to you because my baby's going to wake up. But you just have to read them. They're just so good and interesting and abstract. Gods in their need for validation like tender humans. Gods need validation. And then it sounds like an actual call to prayer in between the verses. And then we have the sound of woods. The first time I listened to this album, I only really liked the songs that had woods on them because I was kind of like, well, I want my binky. I want my woodsy binky. And then by the time I listened to the album, whatever, the 20th, 30th time, I'm like, fine. I mean, I'm happy to hear Woods. I always like hearing them. But can we get back to a Lucid? It had actually been inversed. But still, his verse is cold. Buddy Holly on the plane. I'm focused on the next gig because Buddy Holly died in an airplane going to his next gig. It's a weight on my chest. I waited for the message, made it past the beta test. Victor let his monster live. Don't bother asking. I gave it everything I had to give. This is planned obsolescence. Frankenstein. Victor von Frankenstein, the guy who created Frankenstein's monster. That's the Victor I assume he's saying. He let the monster live. He didn't kill it. Made it past the beta test. Weight off my chest. It seems like it's a lot about like technology of the planes and maybe technology of the internet, maybe technology of social media and the planned obsolescence that's built into all technology to make sure that in 5 years, whoever it is that's using that leaf blower, whatever demon is using that leaf blower, will not be using that leaf blower next. I'm sorry. Most people who use leaf blowers are not paid very well. So that's probably not a demon using the leaf blower, but you know what I'm saying. Then we get to Slum of Disregard, produced by Lucid himself exclusively. Musically, it's crazy. It's falling apart. It's sputtered. It might be too far for you. And this is a very complicated message of oppression. And this is fascinating, and I think it's an important song. And I'm very, extremely, highly uncomfortable with a lot of discourse about Gaza because it can unintentionally veer into the anti-Semitic. Even by good, well-meaning people, it can lead into that. And I hate this discourse because I hate the fact that there's a false equivalency drawn between being angry at Netanyahu's government and hating Israel. Okay? Like, watch. I do not like the president. I do not like Trump. If he's president, that doesn't mean I hate all Americans, right? Hey, I can do that, right? But what I think makes this song so great is that it really is not an anti-Semitic song, but it is a very anti-Zionist song. And it walks that line in a way that I think is important, because the thing that he does is he draws the correlation between power and abuse. What's happening in Israel is a question of power. Okay? It's using faith. And this is a lesson that I teach. Faith justifies the ambition to dominate. Every single religion that has ever tried to kill in its own name has never done it in the name of the religion, has always done it in the name of their ambition to dominate. So it makes the song so fascinating. Black mold, black lung, black child, no callback. Abuse of power comes as no surprise. My landlord is a Zionist. First I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, is he just saying that like he's Jewish and Jewish landlords are bad because Jewish people own everything? Is that what Lucid is saying? No, I don't think so. He apparently is talking about a real story where he has a landlord, and that landlord is an actual Zionist, like not like Jewish and therefore Zionist, but talks about going and fighting against, for the state of Israel. Okay? And he's talking about getting black mold in his apartment. I started my family at University of California, Santa Barbara family housing. There was black mold in our housing apartments. What the hell? What the hell, man? What the hell? My kid has asthma. I mean, I have asthma, so that's probably why my kid has asthma. But my kid might have gotten asthma from this black mold from this negligent landlord that happened to be the University of California, Santa Barbara. Go Gauchos. No callback. It's an abuse of power. That's what it is. Landlords abuse their power. And that's what the situation in Gaza is. Fundamentally, it is an abuse of power. And of course, it's also the deaths of tens of thousands of people. I'm not saying it's an abstract thing that's happening. It's a concrete thing that's happening. But it's happening in this... Now we got the damn alarms going. He says Tel Aviv holiday is one of the lyrics. I don't know if that's a Dead Kennedys reference to Holiday in Cambodia. I sort of think it is. I smile like a watermelon slice. There's just fascinating... So basically what he's doing is he's making an international plea. He's making international, interracial, trans-ethnic plea that essentially drawing an equivalency between the suffering of black Americans in white supremacy to the suffering of Palestinians during occupation and elimination by the State of Israel. That's the parallel that he's drawing, and he's drawing it on many different levels. And at the same time that this is a very abstract album, and I don't want to decipher everything, this is maybe the most decipherable thing because of this idea that I smile like a watermelon slice, which if you look at old racist imagery from the early 1900s of African Americans, of the recently liberated people, the hateful imagery is often literally smiling with a watermelon in their mouth because of the stereotype of liking watermelons, which I never understood as a kid because who in the world does not love watermelons? I've never met a person who doesn't love watermelons, but it doesn't matter. It's a stereotype and it's used to dehumanize, and so it's that big smile, but then also the watermelon is the symbol of the Palestinian resistance, and he's drawing all these things together. He's drawing together his struggle as a person who is enforced to rent, because even though he's a great artist, he cannot afford to buy a house in New York City. He cannot afford to buy an apartment in New York City. Okay? He can't, because he's making money off of streams. He can't do it. It doesn't matter how great of an artist he is. So he's in this position, and this person has this power over them, and they're abusing that power by not caring that his kid is getting black lungs from the black mold. Faith justifies the ambition to dominate, from the creation of caliphates to the crusades to the genocide. Okay, next track is called RFID, produced by Alan Duggan. I don't know if he's related to Dugan Nash, the producer of that song that's like triple double flip. Remember that song from like the 90s? Anyway, I don't think they're connected. Crazy hard high violins, just like blasted, clipping, buzzy 50s sample. I think it's more about the war again, but also about the dehumanizing nature of technology. Just insanely awesome. Just this great buzzy bit at the end. And I guess this guy is from an Irish band. I don't know. The production on the album is so good. Instant Transfer, again featuring Billy Woods. Crazy, woozy smoke sample. These sounds come in. It's almost like a video game, like a vaporwave thing. When it's your time, it's your time. Walking backwards through the flowers, I feel bubble-headed. Reality testing, I need extra credits. Sky page text, alphanumeric. Blind days, rain taste metallic. Dark road lined with tall pine, fire tongues in the annex. Beautiful abstract art. I don't even need Woods at this point. He comes in though. He's obviously still great. He makes some references to Electra and Clytemnestra, and he talks about not reading books but reading tea leaves. And he ends the whole verse with a reference to Devin Hester, from Scarlet Letter. It just great. And then another track with John Nellen, Ikebana. Again, just my favorite stuff here. And I love that the first track they recorded was one of these tracks because it so clearly set forth what this is going to be. These drums, these great ghost notes, and really great elucid style rapping, and it seems to be about his kind of domestic joy. Trigger Doomsday, Apocalypse, Ikebana Boutique, chosen for my boo thang. Ooh, I feel like everybody knew but me, all my comings and goings. A black power nap away in my draws, but I'm off key. Good morning, oatmeal, Ethiopian coffee, scorching space, junk, X's and orbiting, burn away before they penetrate. You were in just these beautiful soundscape and images and like little puns, power nap and black power nap away in my draw, maybe the need to be engaged. It's beautiful. Amazing. An amazing beat at the end here with these like bongos and they're scratching and it's like this little jam and just whatever it takes. Let's get John Nellen into the loop, okay? Let's get him in the underground rap loop. The same way that Kenny Siegel is there, the same way that child actor's there, the same, like let's just get him to be a guy who does a lot of stuff because I want to hear this style more. We need more drummers and rappers. It's awesome. In the Shadow of If is the next track by John Nellen. The drums are there and the vocals are pitched down. I love his voice like this. God damn, I love these beats. It's the best. It's the best drumming. It's beautiful. He's rapping about being out of the city in the rap music plug podcast. He talks about that, about like driving outside of New York and being uncomfortable with the number of like Trump flags and Confederate flags and even American flags, that it makes you nervous. And that's the question, like where can you be? And that's one of the things that maybe ties into this whole Palestine and Israel question, to go back to it, because I'm a glutton for punishment. But like where can you be? Like that's the thing. That's the thing about like white supremacy, is that like it makes us comfortable always, everywhere we are. Like where we are is where we're supposed to be. And where can the oppressed people be? Where could the oppressed Jews be? They could be in Israel. Once they're there and they have enough power, where can the Palestinians be? Okay? Like, where can the people be? And this space out here, I'm lucky. I live in a neighborhood where there's only one Trump sign. It says, "Take America Back." From who? From Joe Biden? All right. Next track is called Skip. Skip. Basically a spoken word thing, like beats and harps come in. It's all on this idea of some kind of power, which might be a reference to Navajo skinwalkers, because there's a book called Some Kind of Power. I don't think it is. Then we get to Hush Puppies, another self-produced song. Must find fried fish, it's Friday. How now, brown cow? The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. I love this kind of weird, it's a reference to religious rights and needing to eat fried fish. Hey, it's Friday, maybe I'll eat fried fish. The drums are really like simple, and these 3 notes and these like almost laughing sounds. It's like a little ditty, but it's great. Leads into the next song by Saint Abdullah, more wild kind of non-English singing, dreamlike synthesizers. These drums are far away, almost like sci-fi sounds, like the continuing adventures of. And he sort of tells this history of rap music and how it's consumed. Napster 99, napping through the lecture, extra, spare the long goodbyes, give me minute 5. And then later in the song is where he, is this the one where he references Africa Islam? I thought it was. I don't know, maybe that was the next song. Oh, point is, talked about Napster, talking about how he's listening to music, and then just his voice in the underneath. Oh my God. Then voice to skull with child actor, another beautiful beat. Starts off with some like self-help sounds, then it gets more traditional. Still nuts, especially if you listen to this album in headphones. It never it basically never dips below a 4 in terms of how far out and great the production is. And I just feel this verse because he talks about getting up before his family and losing his mind just for an hour. That's how I am right now. I relate to him as a father, because it's like, where do you find time to do things? Even now, I know I don't have time. I know my baby's up. If I seem a little bit anxious, it's probably because of that. Beautiful lyrics. Just great. And it seems to be describing his life. And I think that's the thing that he has in common with Woods, is they're very good, and the recently departed Ka, they're very good at weaving in personal narratives of the mundane nature of their actual life, and weaving them into larger themes of oppression and societal ills and all that, while still keeping you grounded. Like, they talk to you a lot more about themselves than you think they do. Like, by the end, I feel like I kind of know, like when I'm done listening to a Woods album, I kind of feel like I know where he is emotionally. And I kind of feel like I know where Lucid is emotionally, while at the same time, I've had what I think is the definitive song about the Gaza conflict that's happening right now. Like, you can have both those at the same time when you make a masterpiece. Next track's called Jolo, produced by The Lasso. Not Ted Lasso. The Lasso. Cinematic, whiny, stabbing, synths, like very far away, ratty drum beat, just beautiful. I looked it up. Jolo is a Mexican restaurant in Brooklyn, but then he gives a lot of names of streets in Queens, so I don't really know why that is. But this song just gets faster and faster, so unnerving, till the album ends with Zigzag Zig, more unpleasant kind of madness, but this great vaguely dancehall rhythm by DJ Haram. Really a great thing, a really great video. A great beat. These great kind of descending boop sounds. Now, Zigzag Zig, I always think of the RZA saying, Zigzag Zig, oh, right? Because that was just a thing he said. I think that was even on that album. So it's some kind of Nation of Islam 5%er thing. I'm not quite sure what it is, but what I think it is trying to avoid getting shot. And again, he draws a parallel between, this is the parallel that I read, between watching videos of Palestinians being killed and watching videos of black men being killed by the police. That's the way that it feels. That, like, when you are an oppressed people in an unequal society, you have to keep zigging, zagging, and zigging to keep safe. You can't just walk. Again, when you are imbued with institutional power, of white supremacy, as I am, I can walk straight. I'm not going to be bombed. I'm not going to be shot. I'm not going to be killed, right? But I have to zigzag zig. I do remember I used to be so afraid of being abducted in the 80s. They had all these commercials about being abducted that I used to actually walk home from school in a zigzag pattern, because I was told if you saw the same car more than one day, it's probably a kidnapper. So some schmuck was just driving home from work, and I was like hiding in the bushes and stuff. And that's kind of a funny story, but the whole thing is not funny because that was just a one little time of a scared little kid. That wasn't my literal existence. War clouds, cruel sky, survived like a moving target. I didn't watch the video. I remembered it in my body. He is doing something that a lot of great poets have done. A lot of great African poets, a lot of great Caribbean poets, a lot of great American poets talking about the generational trauma, saying he doesn't need to watch the video of people being shot and killed and looking like moving targets and having to run, because he experiences it. He feels it in his body. Body twist, angles akimbo, covered, heads huddled, there's no conscience, no authority. That he has these feelings, and it's as though what's happening in Palestine is something that he feels in his body as a black American, that he has felt this injustice like in himself. So he doesn't need to watch the video. It's an amazing album. It really is. And I'm really nervous that I said something in my description of the Gaza situation that I will regret. But I'm open to it. Because I think it's really important that we. Anyways, I think that's the most I've ever talked about on this channel. But what am I supposed to do? It is what the artist demands. These are my Patreons. They help me to buy music. If Fat Possum hadn't sent me that album, I probably would have bought it anyway. Although I'd probably start at song 3 because song 2 scares is a little too unpleasant for the family. I ask for shout-outs. My Patreons love this album. Spicy Oreo 74, Jack Dyson. It's Boundo. Don't know how to pronounce the name. Jonathan Lauder, Obadiah Bumbly, Zach, Toby Repellent, and OG Nick Marsh. I'm now going to see if she's like basically on a trampoline. Yeah, I better get going. All right. Until next time, what did you think about this album? And there's the camera.